I will ask the Sir, Dr. Shivkumar sir, you have
Yes, sir.
PPT with you, sir. PPT you can share.
How about the other person, sir? Is it possible to share? I'll try.
You just try if you can share. We can start it.
1 second, I'll make a thing. Please find out if it is coming. Right?
Because they have made you as a co-host. It seems just I'm calling them actually. Yeah, they told that they have made you a host.
No, I'm not able to get, sir. Let me see. Yeah, is it coming? Please have a look.
Yeah. Yeah, it is coming.
Coming.
It is.
Yes, fine.
It is there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
it is coming. Just change the slide. We'll see once.
Yeah, we are with the topic here, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is there.
Yes, yes.
But you can change the slide if it happens. No,
No,
otherwise,
sir. I can do myself, sir. No issue.
what about Dr. Mamta? Can you do it? You have,
Yes, sir. Let me check.
no, you just check. Because otherwise, I have to ask the headquarters. They didn't tell me about it.
Yes, sir. This says this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, yeah, other screen sharing you can stop now. Dr. Shivkumar will.
Can you go back?
Yeah.
Dr. Mamta?
Yes, sir. So we will be beginning with your presentation, sir, first.
Yeah. After that, can you share? You have got downloaded, no? Dr. Mamta? Yeah. It has come.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
it is there. Yes, nice.
So we will,
Yes, fine.
Then we will start off, no problem.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. So now we will go back to the original this one, that slide. Welcome slide.
Yes, sir.
You can stop sharing, sir. I will introduce sir and just for about 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Just stop sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, done.
Welcome all of you. Good evening. So on this occasion of World Antibiotic Awareness Week event series from IMA headquarters, we are conducting through IMA Karnataka the CME on antimicrobial resistance today.
If somebody is meddling, I request not them to meddle.
Today's topics are decision making about antibiotic prescription and some of the interesting cases on misuse of antibiotics. So I welcome all of you and I welcome our IMA KSP President, Dr. Katil Suresh Kuduba for the welcome speech.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad. Respected IMA National President, Dr. J. Yalal, Honorary Secretary Jayesh Lele, Honorary State Secretary Dr. S.M. Prasad, President-elect Dr. Shivkumar Lakkol, Speakers of the Day Dr. Shivkumar BR and Dr. Mamata Kale, and all the IMA members viewing this webinar in digital platform. Today, we are addressing on our second webinar of the year, IMA year, First being yesterday's talk on adolescent health. Today, we are addressing on antimicrobial resistance as of antibiotic awareness of the week series throughout the country as per our IMA initiative. The need of the hour is sparing proper judicious use of antibiotics, proper dosage for optimum period, and antibiotics stewardship. We all should know common pathogen in and around our community and the sensitivity pattern of in our area. The day of broad spectrum antibiotics is over. Now it is specific antibiotics depending on the sensitivity pattern in particular area. Due to the emerging resistant pathogens because of the antibiotic overuse, cautious approach is the need of the hour. Our today's speakers will throw light on the subject. Over to Dr. Prasad.
Thank you, Dr. Katil Suresh Kudva, sir. So all of us know that the fight against antibiotic resistance started from WHO. So underuse, misuse of antibiotics, definitely all of us know that it can lead on to the antibiotic resistance. So for throwing light on this, today the first topic is the decision making about antibiotic prescription by Dr. B.R. Shivkumar. I am very much pleased to introduce Dr. B.R. Shivkumar, Professor, ex-principal and HOD Medicine of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Medical College, Bengaluru, with an experience of over 30 years and guiding thousands of young and bright doctors. Dr. B.R. Shivkumar is known for his astute clinical skills and incredible depth of knowledge in internal medicine. Dr. B.R. Shivkumar has also served as the treasurer and PRO of IMA Bangalore branch and currently holds the key position in various medical associations. He is also the present vice chairman of APA Karnataka chapter. He has contributed to the medical research with more than 30 articles. It has been published in reputed national and international journals. He also conducts diabetes awareness programs among school children. Over to Dr. B.R. Shivkumar, sir.
So thanks for the introduction. And, and I would like to thank Dr. Katil Suresh Kudva, sir, and Dr. S.M. Prasad, the President and Secretary of IMA Karnataka branch chapter, and all the senior faculty members who are attending today, and the IMA family, and my friends, and also my colleague, the next speaker, Dr. Mamta. And straight away, I will go into the subject. And today's topic is decision-making about antibiotic prescription. So I'll just take a minute or two. What is this decision-making about antibiotic prescription? A very good thought by the IMA of giving this topic. When a doctor sits in his chamber at the OP chamber, or when he's doing a rounds very fast in ICU to save a patient there, or in the rest of the wards in the hospital. So he is got an enormous responsibility to take a decision about not only the patient's attendants who are attending to him, the patient, and the staff, the other paramedical staff, the other health volunteers, and also the next generation. So he has to keep in mind about so many people surrounding him with a lot of next generations. I don't mean next generation, next generations here. Okay, so with this thing, I would like to go for a small quote, which had been when we have been having a cross references through the various journals. There is a journal from Federation of European Microbiological Societies, a very catchy thing for the microorganisms. What does not kill me makes me stronger. This was being quoted by Frederick from the Twilight of the Idols in 1889. A good wisdom what he had, I believe. So when the antibiotic era started, at that time, the thought was that the beginning of mass production of antibiotics. The antibiotics started rolling up like anything after penicillin, chloramphenicol, tetracycline. These were the few things which I think my senior faculty members may be knowing what they were writing in the government hospitals, and they had seen less number of septicemia, and the mortality also was less in government hospitals. It was not coming because septicemic shock, septic shock, multi-organ dysfunction syndrome, and all these things were going on there. But it is being seen now. Those days, the recovery was good with just 3 wonderful drugs what they had in the government hospitals, like injection CP, crystalline penicillin, injection gentamicin, injection metrogyl. These were the wonderful drugs which are available 30, 35 years back. Now to see crystalline penicillin, injection CP, injection procan penicillin for the younger generation, I think they are not able to see how even the vial is there. Only in the museum you have to keep and show to them. Every medical college has got a museum in the respective departments to show them that. So this mass production of antibiotics made to think that the microbes could be brought down to a very lower level so that infections could not be seen, but that we were taken back. We were taken aback because at that time, the role of genetics, the genomes, and this thing had a role of antibiotic with the microorganisms. So these all things made us to think that the mutations of this resistance widened up very wide, very to a large extent, and it caused multi-drug resistant bacteria. Now today, what we had earlier with a very testing, once the US generals, Surgeon General, they have that as a topmost job there. In 1970, it declared that as if that war against pestilence had been won. It has been won against that. Now that has become wrong. That has become not true now because we are battling with the multi-drug resistant, X-drug resistant. Okay, we can use the various terminologies for these issues here. But what we were taught, we have been optimistic at that time. Now it has become a very this thing. Now, moreover, this is why we have taken this topic is we have to make a benchmark slogan and stop this antibiotic resistance because there is a striking, rapid and striking phenomena of biological evolution which is being generated none by other than by the mankind itself. So this evolution of antibiotic resistance is based on genetic variation, which I'll not go more into that. Okay. So let me see that what else we can have at this thing. Next, what is this antibiotic? So what is the pharmacologist, what they teach to us, to a student, what is an antibiotic? So we usually think that antibiotic has got all the powerful weapons with that, but we have to know what are the sources of antibiotics, what does it mean, and what for what purpose we are using. That basic definition is to be rechristened now. So the basic definition of antibiotic as per the standard books are, it are the substances produced by microorganisms which selectively suppresses the growth or then only kill other microorganisms at very low concentration. This definition excludes other natural forms produced by higher forms or produced by other microorganisms. See, we are taking from one microorganism, one source. We do a lot of research work on that. We produce one drug formula and we employ on the other microorganisms. So this is one thing which we have to be very much aware where we are getting, what is happening here. The second one is what is the role of a physician or a family physician or for any purpose, whoever the doctor of any specialty who is going to select a drug should understand about the recent advances in the antibiotics. So this is very much important. The recent advances in the antibiotics. These antibiotics for next to make an antibiotic to the sponsors, how many billions of dollars they put, how many of the subjects means right from the animal model to the human model, workup should be done and then approval by the FDAs and then the cost, they have to recover the cost of the drug which has come. All this takes minimum of 15 years or it could be still more extended. A drug coming into the market will take minimum 15 years. Now we are on the verge near to colistin and few more drugs here. And what are the next drugs we are going to have? What is the mankind's promotion towards this? So if at all our own kith and kin or our own friends or our own patients next comes, whoever comes, it is not a responsibility of us to see that it is the duty, unnecessary usage of the drugs should be not done. So we have to minimize. Then some of them may question, doctor, it is very easy for you when you are speaking on the platform here. You are telling, my patients are asking us, my fever has not come down even after 3 days, 4 days. What I'm supposed to do? They'll ask, this drug should have been given 3 days earlier. This is the clinical acumen which comes into the role here. The clinical acumen comes here. What type of infection are we dealing here? An elaborate history is to be taken, and then only where is the foci of infection could be done. That focus, what is the normal flora and what can come out. If at all you have made a diagnosis, what is the spectrum of the microorganisms, which tops the list, which comes down the list, the percentage wise is to be known, and then whether should we use a gram positive or a gram negative, and then bacteriostatic or bactericidal. This mindset is basically required when we are writing one antibiotic on our prescription, and mind the prescription becomes a legal document. It is in the hands of the patient here. We are answerable. With these few things of the background, let me go here about the first slide here. What are the factors which affects antibiotic formulation? There are a number of factors which should be considered for each host.
Dr. Shukumar, sir, just do a slide this one.
Sir, I have done this thing, sir. It is already visible for me.
It is visible. So here it is not happening.
Slide show, sir.
Slide show you have to post.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it now, sir? Is it visible now?
Sir, it is visible. On your right side, you see that slideshow button.
No, my full screen is occupied, my here.
Occupied, huh? Oh, here it is.
My full screen is occupied with the thing here.
Okay, you are able to.
Yeah. You want me to go back again? I'll go back and start the slides.
Yeah, because it is only half. It is coming. That's.
Sir, in the toolbar, you can see that at the bottom you see on the right side, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Just click on that, sir.
Yes. Is it now visible? Is it there, ma'am, now?
It is not yet changed.
Okay.
To stop sharing,
I'll stop sharing and I'll again take it back.
That's better.
I'll again come back, sir.
Okay.
Is it coming now?
It is coming. Now go to the slide sharing.
Now it is there. It has come now, slide sharing?
No, not yet. Slide sharing has come, but this one, no, only the.
Which one, sir?
Full screen not coming. Yeah.
My screen is full.
For you, it is coming. Oh, here it is not coming for us. Okay, you can continue, sir. No problem.
Okay, I'm sorry for this technical thing, but my laptop is showing the full screen now.
No, okay.
Okay, if you give me a minute, I'll get back to you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, it is changing, but that full screen has to happen.
So, sir, I can see the full screen.
You can see, sir. Then we go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Zoom it up.
Shukumar, sir. Yeah, you can.
Well, now?
Yeah, please go ahead. No problem. Yeah.
No, I am not able to see now.
Oh, is it? Okay. No, sir. Dr. Suresh sir is seeing. Kudwa sir is seeing. I am also seeing.
Only I am unable to see now, sir.
It is visible to Dr. Vijay Kumar also. Yeah.
Now, sir?
Now we are seeing.
Okay. I'm sorry for this technical lag. Okay. So now what are the various, there are a number of factors which should be considered for each host when administering antibiotic formulations. What was being taught to us in our MBBS days, G6PD, that deficiency was one thing, which become a short notice right in biochemistry and in pathology, everywhere, micro, everything. I'll not go into detail about the genetic factors, but it is very alarming when we see in the hospital patients. So G6PD is an X-linked genetic disorder. To the thing, to know that it has got 187 allelic mutations. And erythrocytes are particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress in the G6PD. It is not only to the antimicrobial agents, to the antibiotics. This could be seen even with the food also, because this is seen particularly in one few groups like in African, Middle Eastern, Asian descent. So whoever has got hemolytic anemia, when you're suspecting hemolytic anemia, please think in mind about using the drug, whether this patient has got G6PD deficiency. Okay, because for example, the short notes under G6PD was for us favism, or with the fava beans, what was being consumed, they used to have oxidative stress. But here, the carry-over message for G6PD patients is the sulfur group of drugs like sulfacytine, sulfadiazine, sulfaguanidine, sulfamethoxazole, okay, and trimethoprim, that is a combination, including vitamin K. We have to be a bit careful when we are employing these drugs in G6PD. The next one is renal and hepatic impairment. This is most of the pharmacology part, which the physicians and the family physician should carry the basic pharmacology knowledge. So what all the drugs maximum is metabolized in the liver and pushed out in the urine by the renal system. When the patient has got nephropathy grade 1 or grade 2, and now in our country we find a lot of diabetic patients here, and who has got diabetes, hypertensive, drug induced, whatever the reason could be behind the renal impairment, we have to see that, for example, we want to give amikacin. The patients, everything, the cultural sensitivity, whichever the body fluid sample is showing there, it will be only sensitive to amikacin. We have to give amikacin to save the patient now. If at all we know the serum creatinine level and also the drug action for how many hours it acts, we have a formula, we multiply by that, and then we give that amikacin once in so many hours, because we want to move it out, or we have to flush it out. So this is one small example what I'm trying to say here. And we have got the drugs which are bacteriostatic and bactericidal, which is to be known to us in septicemia. Rather than curbing the growth, we have to kill the microbes. Hence, the selection of drugs should be more of bactericidal for a faster recovery. So when we have some patient having tumors, lymphomas, vasculitides, systemic disease, again, the selection of drugs is most important. One thing is, what other anti-malignant drugs or steroids or whatever is being taken, these drugs, what we are going to give the antibiotics, should not be either because of drug-to-drug interaction, should lose its power or its antimicrobial action, or else it should not augment the concentration more, or it should not increase the anti-malignant drugs toxicity. So we have so many things to be kept in mind when we are using these drugs here. The next line is administration of antibiotics should be immediate because presence of infection is life-threatening. For example, you have, nowadays we are seeing very less number of patients of what we call valvular heart disease. So valvular heart disease patient has come with very high grade fever lasting for a few days, and you have done a 2D echo and the patient has got vegetations. You have to give, because your culture and sensitivity from the bloodstream microbes, what we call, is going to take some time. As quick as possible, the growth is being observed. The microbiologist informs us, they rush to us. Till then, what to do? That is the time we have to read the books properly. 15 ml, 5 to 15 ml of blood at an interval of 1 hour. The samples are being taken minimum 3, and then we know the spectrum of this infective endocarditis. Based on that, as per the regimen, we start the antibiotics. This is what I said about the bacterial. Same thing applies to meningitis. We do ILP, we send the CSF analysis, and acute necrotizing cellulitis is very easy to see on this slide. But when you see the patient's thigh, for example, on the thigh, we have got necrotizing cellulitis, how horrible it is, and how to what extent the gangrene-like material is being visible, how fast rampant the growth is there. I think we have to save the patient, otherwise we lose the patient here. So this one line looks very easy, this fourth line or fifth line in this slide, but the physician has to apply his mind and then he has to go this. So before administration, and I would apologize, few slides here has got spelling mistakes and grammatic corrections. Kindly bear with us. So here, the anaerobic cultures also should be taken and it should be monitored. after the initial treatment. The failure will therefore change initial therapeutic regimen. What is the strategy of the antibiotics prescription here? The strategy of administration of antibiotics should be taken into account when, with serious bacterial infections, the number of white cells, the total count plays an important role here. Every time when we go for rounds, the patient is not improving, patient has got tachycardia, either a low grade or a high grade fever, and patient is not, then we see what the antibiotics we have given, pending culture and sensitivity reports. See, we have to see, and we have to see whether the neutrophilia is very high or what. So here again, the clinical picture, based on that we have to identify the anatomical location. How do you identify? For example, a patient has come with high-grade fever. Now, post-COVID season, and there are some amount, again, COVID is becoming more. This is one of the indication which I would like to say today. And what is happening is, we are seeing a lot of non-COVID bacterial pneumonias nowadays, more and more. So what happens in that case also, fever, sputum with sputum production, and the pleuritic chest pain minus or plus. This shows that the anatomy is in the lung here. Okay. So similarly, burning micturition, the renal system here. So, and to counter this, to validate that, so what is the best way we can try to make is the small results or the investigations and the results which could be easily available can be done, and the treatment could be initiated. Again, the strategy continues here. Now, the patients who are being admitted, after admission, they have come for some other reason here, but they have taken into the what we call hospital-acquired infections here, and they have developed fever and all those things now. So now, if they develop an infection during hospital stay, minimum time required, very fast in an immunosuppressed state or vulnerable for susceptible for infections, minimum 6 hours, maximum 2 days and above. So they can have this hospital-acquired infections, where that is the reason in the beginning, our president, Dr. Kudvasa, said that the stewardship program, antibiotic stewardship program comes. Every hospital should have the hospital antibiotic stewardship, and that in that there is a leadership. What are the drugs we are using, we know. In that ward, what are the drugs for what conditions we are knowing. So that drugs may have a multi-drug resistance, and they would have acquired that infection. It's very difficult to treat, especially in ICU, post-surgical things, and other conditions where the infection comes, very difficult to treat. Selection of drugs is very much important. To overcome this, a proper drug should be prescribed. The remarkable ability of microorganisms to adapt to any environment is that each new pathogenic is resistant to antibiotics. This is a wonderful thing, but I think I request in some other platform this to be discussed in detail about the genetics and the antibiotic resistance. So that is a big chapter which goes. For example, when I'm trying to give ciprofloxacin drug, the ciprofloxacin drug, to what level it can concentrate layers of concentrators, microconcentrators we call, and to what happens to Pseudomonas aeruginosa, what happens to the other drug. So there are, to that level we have gone now. When I'm giving ciprofloxacin for that only, we know what happens with the up to the other organisms here. So that is a level now where this genetic of the drugs, mutations, and antibiotics has moved on. Patient with meningitis should not be administered antibiotics. This is a common sense we say. This is a common sense. For example, in the beginning stage when we are students, enteric fever, enteric meningism, what is the drug of choice you would like to give? The cephalosporins, or is it gentamicin or clindamycin? At that time, aquinolone was then known as pfloxacin. Now that is not available in the market. They'll ask whether ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, or whatever that. So we should know the drug which crosses the blood-brain barrier, and then only that drug should be given here. Then again, blood-brain barrier, one more thing at the end, if time permits, let me speak about lipopolysaccharides and cholesterol. If lipopolysaccharides has got a problem with that disorder there, cholesterol, however powerful, is not going to help us there. Okay, so these drugs, how it's to be done, should be seen properly. Again, with endocarditis, the treatment should be done with bactericidal drugs at high doses. That is the reason we have got various regimens and what are the drugs should be used we have there. And the foreign body infections, very, very common nowadays. If I'm not wrong, 60%, 60 to 66% of human body parts are going for a replacement. Amongst that, very common in our country is prosthetic valves, prosthetic joints, pacemakers. So here, after this, these are all the vulnerable places again for having infections. Whatever you try to do, we have to see that if at all the patient is not improving and worsening, whatever amount of antibiotics you're pumping and no improvement, it's better to remove that, give some holiday for that area, and then once healed, we have to go back. It could be common even with a hernia patient where the mesh also can be one thing where the pus may be literally pouring out there. Not only prosthetic valves or prosthetic joints, it could be even a simple mesh we have seen which causes here. This is one more thing, acute infection with patients with neutropenia, asplenism. I think this is one more topic. We have to be very careful here. Getting the patients, reviving the patients is very difficult. So appropriate drugs should be used at appropriate time with appropriate cultures of the body fluids. High doses doesn't mean we have to give. For example, ceftriaxone 2 grams IV, we can go sometimes extend IV BD also. But usually IV OD or IV BD sometimes in septic shock doses. So like that, we have to apply our mind what drug to what level it can be extended. Okay, so this is one thing we should be seeing. So older people metabolize and excrete antibiotics at a slower pace. Nobody can replace degeneration. Degeneration is a eternal one. It goes on and nobody can slower that or replace it. And we have to be very careful at the geriatric patients, what type of drugs we are going to use. A simple drug which even causes mild jerks like a giddiness is sufficient for him. It need not have a very gross antibiotic reaction. It could be a smaller reaction, a small, what we call elderly falls is sufficient to have here. So please pick up the drug and the larger intervals for the age wise and have an eye on their major organs. For example, aminoglycosides with nephrotoxicity and ototoxicity in case if at all they're hard of hearing or like that. Management of antibiotics by health professionals. I think it is only health professionals we are going because this slide sometimes reflects the other part of the world. Health professionals also need to bear in mind, okay, what they have to bear here. The antibiotic should not be rushed up at one time. Okay, so we have a Venflon, that is the IV axis. There is a Venflon, and in that IV, this thing Vasofix, what you're trying to give. So we have to inform our staff nurses who are going to inject. See, this drug should be given first. Is there any interval to be given? And again, the other drug is to be given, or else you require 2 Vasofix, or you require a 3-way. Because I remember my teachers at that time, they were very strict with us. And suddenly on the rounds, they used to ask us, what is the pH of this drug? Because sometimes what happens, they mix the drugs and they give for the lack of time. They draw one, they draw the other one, put into the same syringe and rush. pH, one has got acidic one, the other one base one. What happens, the salt is already formed. That is known as drug-to-drug interaction. One is that. Synergistic is one more thing. Eat compounds more and more. So here again, it happens by the same way. So for example, there where we can have this polymicrobial infection, intraventricular brain abscesses, and especially diabetic patients having the diabetic foot with very bad infections here. So we have to be very careful there. Every antibiotic has got side effects. Let me not run away from this, but still we do use. Nowadays, the younger generation are not exposed to penicillin, except 1 or 2 conditions compulsorily where do we give. Still, we are seeing some cases of primary syphilis, right? And still some patients of multivalvular disease as a prophylaxis for infected endocarditis we are giving. So they have to go to a lot bigger hospitals and take, but even some medical college hospitals are not having penicillin. Okay, so penicillin is one thing. Usually we used to rush from the OPD to the injection room for the penicillin thing. Sometimes we lose the patient also. So it's a very, very, what to say, very bad allergic reaction. Okay, catastrophic is the right word to be used. So the antibiotics increase the risk of infection with resistant microorganisms. As I said earlier, when I gave an example of ciprofloxacin here, okay. So when not only that, what happens is it disturbs even the normal flora also. And many antibiotics are administered to a patient, the spectrum of microorganisms killed is increased. The spectrum of microorganisms killed is increased. So the destruction of the flora, especially from the oropharynx and gastrointestinal tract. See, when we send, patient comes with repeated sore throat, patient says, I'm not at all, we may miss a GRD or a cough or anything, whatever the bronchitis, whatever is happening. We ask for a throat swab. We have to know the normal oropharyngeal flora, not to rush with antibiotics. Those are all essential for us to keep us safe. So the elimination of flora is going to, in the development of multi-resistant pathogenic microorganisms. Overuse of antibiotics. In the beginning, our secretary, Dr. S.M. Prasad also said, underuse, overuse, and normal use. Overuse of antibiotics. This drug is not acting, a physician, after 5 days, let me try with one more antibiotic. We'll see with that. Oh, you're not improving. Already 15 days has gone. And already I've changed to 3 to 4 antibiotics, which is not the right thing should be done. Okay. So there are some common bacterial infections we do know in COPD. The lung parenchyma, what are the commonest organisms which are known? Community acquired pneumonia again, UTI, cellulitis. So we have to know the right drug to be used. Clinicians should limit antibiotic treatment duration to 5 days. This is the general trend we use. And again, we have to review the patient. The same drug is acting to the patient, but if you feel that a day or two should be extended, you can extend that. Each patient is a new chapter for you, but you should follow the protocol.
So, sorry to Kumar sir.
Sir.
Slides ಕೆಲವು ಕಡೆ change ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ವಂತೆ. ನಾನೇನಾದ್ರೂ slide share ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾ?
Oh, I'll be very happy, sir, if you do that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can go ahead.
I will do it.
I'll stop sharing and you can go ahead, sir. I'll stop sharing. You can go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Yestne slide number ಹೇಳಿ sir?
Sir, I'm in the 9th slide now.
Okay, stop sharing. I am opening.
I have finished.
You are in the 9th slide, 10th slide.
We can go to the 10th slide, sir.
Is it changing, sir?
Yeah. Fine. It's fine with me.
Yeah, just tell me. Is it overuse or next slide or same?
We'll go for the next slide, sir.
Okay. Is it okay? Or next
yes, sir.
Slide?
Thank you for this.
I will start sharing.
Thank you, sir. When should antibiotics be prescribed and limitation of antibiotics treatment in various cases? You are already being skilled enough to understand the patient's condition and come. This is just what we try to say is a review. It's just a review. A patient has come simple with bronchitis, with mild cough with expectoration. You are asking the sputum color in detail here. Patient is so happy. The doctor is spending so much of time for me here. Is asking the sputum color, which is going to make you to think what is the sputum color here, whether it's just white or is it yellowish in color or greenish in color mixed with black. What other thing is that based on that, you're going to start with your antibiotics. If required, you're sending sputum for culture and sensitivity here. Okay. So it all again depends upon the dyspnea, the sputum volume. Is it scanty or is it copious? These are the words which will be kept in mind when we are going to prescribe the antibiotic. Next slide, sir.
Yeah.
So we'll go for the next slide, sir. Already we have finished here. So now again, the patient comes here with uncomplicated bacterial cystitis. What do you understand by that? Patient may not have fever. Patient may have burning micturition or sometimes lower abdominal pain or a very mild grade, but fever with chills and patient is not at all responding, continuing for more days, and urine is being loaded with pus cells, total count is very high, that becomes a little complicated. And an ultrasound scan shows the infection is with the ascending tract of the distinct renal system. Yes, we have to make it as complicated one. Here with this uncomplicated one, what does your antibiotic protocol in your institution mentions? We have to see. Now we are using a lot of this nitrofurantoin, which is making a wonderful drug. We have forgotten trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole, the trade name Septron, Bactrim. We are totally forgotten. We are scared. We are scared about the patient going for all the side effects, especially the skin manifestation and patient where they misuse us. We have to speak to the patient. We have to see. And if at all patient is confident enough of taking the drug and giving a trial, make a note on your prescription slip, side effects following 1, 2, 3, explain if noticed to attend us. So this is the way it goes. Phosphomycin as a single dose. So this is what we are going to prescribe for 5 to 7 days here. Next one, sir. Same thing goes to for non-purulent cellulitis also. Here, why again I'm stressing the second line of this slide is streptococci. We keep on teaching the patients diabetic foot or whatever the thing is that you have to know which organism in the limbs or over the skin, especially over the skin, is going to cause. If he knows what is streptococci, if he has read his microbiology book properly, he will understand whether it's gram positive, gram negative, cocci, bacilli, chain or what, and exactly he can start with the drugs which are meant for that. Next one, sir. So this is the thing. I'll stop with the 2 lines in this slide here. Right antibiotic, right dose, right duration for a specific condition with minimal adverse effects from the antibiotics. That drug also should not possess the resistance. Okay, next one, sir. This appears to be little thing, whatever we are speaking about, the same thing which goes. There are various bodies available in the world which is issuing guidelines from time to time for acute bronchitis. Gold guidelines are there. So here, what is the drug based on the patient's condition here? Similarly with pneumonia, about ATS guidelines, and UTI, complicated, uncomplicated, and non-purulent. Let me not waste time on this issue. Slide, next one, sir. So next, these 2 things are good. Actually, every time antibiotics are prescribed. Whenever the patient comes for a common thing also, we start giving the antibiotics. If at all your mind says this patient requires necessary investigations, is not going to come back to you. He is very much, what to say, a fussy patient. Do not bother about that. Please order what is the recommended cultures for the body fluids and then start drugs promptly. Make a note of that again. Okay, so the indication is being mentioned, what are the investigations to be done, and you know what is the time limit where the patient should show an expected improvement here, for how long to be given here. Okay, so this is actually 2 days is the time taken for us to review the patient's condition here. If the same thing applies for UTI, okay, and pneumonia. Pneumonia is usually an inpatient thing, what we try to do, and we have a separate protocol with 2 drugs. One could be for gram positive, 2 for gram positive negative. We pick up the thing by seeing the X-ray only, we make it up. For example, upper lobe pneumonias. Upper lobe pneumonias, usually we think Klebsiella could be one of the causative agent. And if the patient has got rusty sputum, we immediately think for Klebsiella, the likely drug which could act may be a quinolone. So let me start quinolone here. After sending the necessary sputum for culture and sensitivity, and we tell the patient once the culture sensitivity reports comes, appropriate antibiotic shall be used. And MRSA is one life-threatening condition usually. Okay, so this methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus thing. So do not use vancomycin. We see the thing, just if the patient is not improving on the second day, come on, use vancomycin. Otherwise, meropenem. We have to be very cautious when we are using this. Next slide, sir. Effect of excessive use of antibiotics. This is one more headache for the patient and also for the physician. And if at all you are a physician in an institution where there is an auditing committee, he will call you. The auditing committee will call you. Then our exhibition of skills on what condition we have used that, we are answerable to them also. Why did you use this drug? For what reason? For how long? You please tell us now. So this we have to be very careful here. And especially for the COVID, the ICMR guidelines are very strict. do not use the antibiotic. Maximum to maximum, secondary infection, if it is being associated, they try to give amoxicillin with clavulanic acid, or else the protocol is entirely different here. Okay, and I've seen in many these things, they start using piperacillin tazobactam. When we have got bilateral pneumonia, patient was apparently healthy, and this RT-PCR for COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2 has become positive. You have got a solid diagnosis. Okay. Next one, sir. In addition to the clear age-related morbidity and mortality, see, older patients, it is very difficult. We have to be very careful, not just casually we are going to use this. We have to be very careful. The dosage should be minimum, not whatever the dosage. We have to at least lessen the dosage and broaden the interval and lessen the duration also. And the second most important one is what drug you're using. For example, quinolone. Earlier, we had a drug known as gatefloxacin. Prolonged QT interval, sudden cardiac deaths. Similar like that, four aminofluoroquinolones, the other fluoroquinolones. Okay, what are you trying to use? We have to use it with a careful thing. A simple drug, not knowing the side effect, can kill a patient. So this is the most important one. And especially if at all this is an institution one, or a patient has got some doctor patients in their family, we are in soup. So let me clearly see that what is the drug's side effects and write it properly. Next one, sir. The pill popping syndrome. The pill popping syndrome, now also we have seen any 50 to 60-year-old before coming to a doctor and erythromycin. This is a local language what they use here. How many erythromycin you have taken? 500 mg doctor. Okay, now we have got the IT-BT people, right? They say, doctor, I've taken azithromycin. I've taken amoxicillin. And what are the conditions they have taken for fever, common cold? They have done their work and then they have come to us. So these are all the drugs which are prone. What is the problem? We have to educate him. A guy, you have taken it for 2 days. In case if that is responding to you, you are coughed on somebody and that guy is going to again acquire the infection. You are taken a partially treated, that infective agent is getting into the other host and is causing a multi-drug. There's a drug resistant drug resistant foci is there. So this is what all is happening. We have to educate, nothing but other than education here. And this one, clinicians should be familiar with local antibiotic sensitivity profiles. If at all you are prescribed, you have practiced in Bangalore, you know about the local flu, the pollution here going on here. Okay, if you cross Bangalore, the patient says, I'm quite comfortable. So that all things should be known to us. And hospital antibiotic policy is being already formulated because of compulsion now, and we have to go accordingly. Next. So next slide, sir. General antimicrobial prescribing advice. Do not start antimicrobials in the absence of clinical evidence of bacterial infection. So you have to document why you are giving an antimicrobial. A man who comes and sits sometimes may be lying to you, who is in your chamber for practice, he may be lying. He may have a lot of doctors in their family and he will not tell anything. That prescription what you are given is being scrutinized by many people. This is what is happening. So let me be very careful when you're documenting the indication for the antimicrobial on your prescription, right? Okay. So now in the ICU, effective antimicrobials for sepsis, the patient is very bad, waiting for the reports. No, we have to load with antibiotics. Initially we start and then the body fluids are sent. We make a request to the microbiology to desensitize, if required, what antibiotic we have used. The Department of Microbiology will be geared up to desensitize the drug and then they'll give us what is the growth in that. So we should use an antimicrobial. We should know, for example, we are using ceftriaxone. Ceftriaxone is being badly abused right from the quacks. A wonderful drug. It is being abused by the quacks. Okay, so we have to know this ceftriaxone can make a wonderful thing. If at all you're reading the other infectious diseases, you know where all we use. For example, even leptospirosis, when penicillin is not being available, the next drug of choice is doxycycline and ceftriaxone. So we have to know what drugs, how it is going to be used. Next slide, sir. Okay, this first slide has got some spelling mistakes and all those things. Let me leave that. So sepsis of unknown origin is the initial diagnosis. So accordingly, based on the guidelines, we have to go then. Okay. So the clinical assessment. Some earlier we are using quick SOFA score. Some people they came up, no, SOFA score is not going to be very relevant. You go back to the word Apache score in the thing. So again, the various scores you have to write, make a thing, and then prescribe the drugs accordingly. Always your ICU, your OPD, now digital availability of knowledge is being very much available now. So what you should do, you should have the CDC site on your thing. The CDC, whichever disease, what you want to give is available to you if required. Okay. And we should not forget, if the patient is in altered behavior, this thing, sensorium, the immediate attender should be taken and then the drug should be given. Without knowing the allergy status, you have to select a drug which has got minimal allergy reactions which could be handled. This is what is most important here. Next one, sir. So now again sampling the body fluids for culture and sensitivity accordingly. Okay, IV administration should be given to severely ill if they're not able to tolerate orally, or else oral therapy will be most ideal. And we should have a proper penetration of almost all the tissues, including the nervous tissue at the brain level. Okay, and we have something known as switching from IV antibiotics to the oral route that can also be employed whenever indicated. And we should write when you have to go for the next review. For example, initially you initiated 48 to 72 hours to know the patient's condition, review after 48 hours. If he has not come, it is his mistake. Have you mentioned? You have mentioned. Why you have mentioned? That should be documented there. Okay. See, what are you going to document this? Stop the drug. There is the international code of scratching the drug, not just with a pen scratching like our school days into the first standard, second standard. If you don't write properly, this thing, then our teachers started put one thing and like please omit. All those things are not going to work up. We have to put one line and put cross all the marks, and that shows that the drug is being stopped. IV to oral switch, antibiotics changed, continue, and again outpatient parenteral antibiotic therapy to be continued. Next one, sir. I think in the beginning, our president sir spoke about stewardship. The stewardship is one thing, it has got an assessment tool. It is a thing, for the mankind, the major hospital should go for a core elements of hospital antibiotic stewardship programs. If time permits, my next speaker, Dr. Mamta, will be speaking about that, I believe. There is an assessment tool for that. Okay, stewardship program. Otherwise, I just mentioned only a few the top. It is running in volumes, which when I was just running through the rushing up that, it contains, forget this thing, I'll just tell what is to be seen, that hospital leadership commitment. It should be committed. There should be a commitment for this. The next one is accountability. The accountability is one thing. Now, do not think that strict. You are your MBBS, MD, DM, and other levels, everything. Your education is something with great difficulty you have come up. But a drug inspector visits you, the pharmacy, in the hospital. He or she goes to the thing and they make a document of how many antibiotics, and their duty is meant by that government servant there. Okay. And they have done their bachelor's or master's in pharmacy, and their duty is that they look at accountability. We are answerable. A pharmacy is selling only meropenem in one of the nursing home, and there is no other drugs which are being sold. Something wrong? Yes. They are going to be issued a red alert notice there. Accountability not only to us within the hospital, we are accountable even to the government. Let me think about this. Is what is very important. Outpatient writing people, okay, fine. Sometimes one guy is only storing all your things. They can also question you. The second one is pharmacy expertise. Here, what is happening? The expertise by the pharmacist, with little pain, I have to say, They only distribute the drugs on the counter. It's a separate platform to be discussed. Okay. What is the action taken for these things, wrongdoings, and what should be the corrective measures taken? How do you track up? Next is the tracking one. How do you report it one? And next one is again educating and employing the CDC antimicrobial stewardship program again effectively. So next slide, sir. There's small this thing I would like to mention here. Ask your pharmacist for advice. I don't know, I really didn't understand. I will not permit the pharmacist for the advice here. Antibiotics don't work for colds, flu. Why should we ask the pharmacist for the advice when we are here? Okay, but pharmacist can be educated not to issue on-the-counter drugs for these things all. Okay, what are the antibiotics which are required? We have already spoken for what are the conditions we are going to use. We'll go for the next one, sir. Instructions to follow. We should tell the people to take antibiotics. Some, see, they may have nausea. It is very easy as a student. What is the side effect of the drug? Nausea, vomiting. When you are the victim, of having nausea and vomiting, oh, let me skip one dose. Please do not do that. Please come back to me. If you find any even minor side effects, I'll attend to you, or else I will advise you one domperidone or ondansetron, whatever the thing you take this, but do not miss the drug. We have to sit and talk with them. So the doctor does not prescribe antibiotics. Do not deny that you are sick. Some people's mentality is that. So they think antibiotics is not necessary. We have to again say, talk everything. Viral infections, never have ever mind antibiotics is going to naturally, it is going to come by itself. Okay. They should be strictly adhered to the dosage instructions, as I said in the beginning, and the patient should be said to follow the physician's instructions carefully. Next one, sir. So next slide, sir. Misuse of antibiotics. So this is one thing from the patient side. All these times we were speaking from our side. So from the patient side, you know, I can remember very nicely where we were speaking my teacher's experience at the rural level. At the rural level, a very grand, big nursing home is being built. All the norms are followed. Yes, sir, followed. How about the sewage? Like in city, they do not have a dedicated sewage. Now only we are making up for the sewage one. You have enteric patients employed. We have got good number of enteric fever patients. What is the mode of contamination? Fecal-oral contamination. The patient goes, he has taken 2 doses of your antibiotic, is showing signs of improvement. He is in that nursing home. He passes his feces. The feces is being stored in a chamber. That chamber is not being put by a proper concrete thing. It is going to all the adjacent agricultural fields in the rural side. The greens are grown, or whatever the vegetables are grown over that. Is it not a good source of fecal-oral contamination? One thing. Almost all the ways it can go. This is what I'm trying to say. Antibiotic resistance can be developed at any level. It is we should think how it goes up. Okay. And the patient himself, the other patient, he is a patient for some other reason. He does not have fever. No other option is taking care of the patient susceptible for infections here. So like that, we have almost all things giving rise to misuse of antibiotics. Let me go to the next slide, sir. What should physicians do to reduce the inappropriate use of antibiotics? A very good question here. As all what we discussed, we are compiling that data, select the drug with minimal adverse effect, minimal drug intervention at an affordable cost, which does not have much antibiotic resistance. When I write for other patient, drug doesn't become a cost to me. When I'm the patient, drug cost is most important. Okay, so let me not do that. We should be very careful in selecting a drug. So many providers may not be highly concerned about their antibiotic prescribing habits. We should educate them. The government, it has happened. I'm telling you, some drug inspectors are meant to do their job. They are back of the physicians, but they are not coming to the forefront to discuss their issues. Next slide, sir. This is very, very important, a didactic educational discussion with the patient. For any issue, Same thing applies to the prescription phenomena. Okay. And should be educated about, say, for example, he comes with running nose, itchy eyes, no fever, body ache, or very mild fever. It could be a viral fever. The pediatricians are very strict. They say nothing doing. You just take paracetamol, antihistaminics, good nutrition diet, bed rest, come after 3 days, we'll see. Patients are concerned about their kids, they take about their, when it comes to them, they want antibiotics. Let me not fall a victim to them. Tell them it's a viral etiology. I'll see you after 48 hours and then review, and then if required, I'll give you the prescription. And please, please, we may lose our integrity. We may make money, but we may lose integrity. We may lose our name and fame in the society if at all we are not concerned about the healthcare costs. Indirectly, right drug at right time at an affordable cost. All these things also brings down the antibacterial resistance. Next one, sir. How to prevent, same thing we were speaking about. For the intestinal disorders, if at all they come with 3 to 4 times they had stools, and you are going to take a detailed one if you are convinced it's a viral one, or it could be, he can be treated with probiotics like we do others. If you're giving some antibiotics, see that it is not going to destroy partially or completely the intestinal flora. Let me give a probiotic to save that. This is the message here. Right, sir. Next slide, sir. Antibiotic multi-resistance and safety of probiotics. Same thing here, what we said. Probiotics can be susceptible to majority of the antibiotics apart from their intrinsic insensitivity. Some drawbacks to this is possibility of resistance transfer from the probiotic to human bacterial pathogens. So let me be very careful when we are employing a drug. Everywhere we should, each drug, each patient should be careful. That's it. Next one, sir. Genetics and biochemistry, for just an example of Bacillus clausi. See, the penicillins mechanism is inactivation. Gene is not known, but genetic basis chromosome here. For each drug, we have for the cephalosporins, aminoglycosides, macrolides, tetracyclines, chloramphenicol, rifampicin. I don't know, my next speaker is she going to speak about at what level this drug resistance occurs. I'll just make a few things here. Decreased porine expression. Okay. So when we take the bacteria completely, we have got the cell wall, we have got the porins in that. Okay. And in that, we have got methylation process, we have got a beta lactamase and a mutation in the DNA gyrase, and we have got aminoglycoside modifying enzymes and lipopolysaccharides, which I said in the beginning, decreased antibiotic binding for the lipopolysaccharides, colistin will not be very effective here. Similarly with topoisomerase. These are all the things when we go in detail, we can speak about this. Earlier, we were only thinking about the plasmid. Not all plasmid is important, the genetic thing, but we have at various sites now this drug resistance. Next slide, sir. Similarly, see the number of resistant strains. When you are giving, how many strains resistance starts? Is out of 4 here. So we have to be very careful when you're selecting a drug. Next one, sir. So infectious disease is one of the greatest tragedies of living things, the struggle of existence between two different forms of life. Incessantly, the pitiless war goes on without quarter or armistice, a nationalism of species against species. The species against species is the most important one here. Next one, sir. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I leave it to the moderators to take questions now or at the end.
Thank you, Dr. B.R. Shivkumar, for wonderfully enlightening us about the decision making. And we can have the questions at the end of the session today. So thank you, Dr. Shivkumar, for enumerating all about the decision making. Now, can we move on to the next topic? The next speaker will be Dr. Mamta Kale, Associate Professor, Department of Microbiology, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Medical College, Bengaluru. Previously, she has worked in Sri Devarajarsa Medical College, Tamaka, Kolar, and she is the member of various committees like Infection Control Committee, Antibiotic Stewardship, and also she took active part, especially in the first and second waves of COVID, also in the institution levels. Over to Dr. Mamta. Over to Dr. Mamta. I think you can unmute and you can start.
Is the screen visible, sir?
Yeah, it is visible. Please go on.
Okay, sir. Yeah, thank you. So I thank the IMA Karnataka branch president, Dr. Suresh Kudva, sir, and the secretary, Dr. Prasad, sir. So I'll begin with my presentation. That is, I've been given few of the interesting cases to discuss today about. One second, sir. I'll just. What is there?
It is changing. Only thing, the arrow mark you have to use. Button. So to begin with, few of the introductory slides are there. That is, what are antibiotics? What are antibiotics mainly? So these, as you all know, once they were discovered, they were a big boon to the mankind, and this brought about the increase in life expectancy and all that. And soon after the discovery, it was also seen that there came along with it the resistance to these antibiotics. So as you all know, WHO has rightly quoted that the emergence and dissemination of antibiotic resistant bacteria in hospitals means that commonplace medical procedures once previously taken for granted could be conceivably consigned to medical limbo, and this has a great repercussions as well, because the use of antibiotics, the resistance to this has firstly not only made an direct effect on the possibility of treating common infections. Secondly, the resistance has brought about also changes in the two different medical procedures, like which are brought about in immunosuppression or transplantation procedures or other advanced surgical procedures, which actually where the immunosuppression is too much and requirement of antibiotics is there. There is difficulty in managing these cases if this antibiotic resistance continues. So what is antibiotic resistance? So antibiotic resistance means a microorganism which was previously sensitive has become not susceptible or resistant to that antibiotic, or it can survive in the presence of that antibiotic. So from clinical point of view, resistance means that if you're giving that antimicrobial to the patient, if it does not bring about any therapeutic success or improvement in the patient condition, so this results in resistance, okay, or this is called as resistance. So these causes of antimicrobial resistance has already been told by the previous speaker, that is unnecessary or misuse of antimicrobial agents has brought about resistance among the bacteria. This is mainly because of selection pressure that happens. So if you're giving any antibiotic, naturally the few of the microorganisms which are resistant, they thrive. And once they thrive and they multiply, there is enough chance of these resistant bacteria to spread as well. So misuse and unnecessary use is one of the cause. And then inappropriate prescribing patterns, that is what we see generally for all viral infections also. These are antibiotics are prescribed invariably, that what we see in COVID as well. Azithromycin was invariably prescribed to all the patients who came with COVID. And
lack of novel antibiotics, as you see, as of now, there are no much antibiotics in research and development in the pipeline as such now, because these pharmaceutical companies which were investing in antibiotics, they see that the cost of investment is too much, and when they see their profit, antibiotics are not much profitable because they usually are given in short courses, and usually antibiotics are cheaper as well. So they do not see much of a profit in that. All these different reasons, we are seeing now multi-drug resistant pathogens which are there and which are difficult to treat, and this is causing great morbidity and mortality as well. So little about origins of antibiotic resistance. So as you all see, with the development of newer antibiotics, so they developed resistance as well. This is because once you expose the pathogens to different antibiotics, they have to adapt to the newer environment. So they develop resistance by different mechanisms. Two processes have been explained for the emergence of resistance. That is, mostly resistance developed by two different mechanisms. One is the mutation that we see can happen, and this result in vertical transmission. That is, from bacteria, from a parent cell, bacterial cell, this spreads to the daughter cell. But what we see also is a horizontal gene transfer. So horizontal gene transfers are by different mechanisms. Again, what we call it as transduction, conjugation, transformation, what we usually teach in the microbiology class. So all these are the different reasons for development of resistance mechanisms. So antimicrobial resistance are broadly classified as intrinsic resistance. So what is this intrinsic resistance? So this intrinsic resistance is these bacteria, some of the bacteria, that is the wild type strain, what we call it as wild type strains, means these bacteria do not have any resistance mechanisms as such. Okay, so they are also not susceptible to few antibiotics. Like you have macrolides, you have which cannot be used against the gram-negative bacteria. So because they are intrinsically resistant, they do not respond to these macrolides. Or Pseudomonas have got different set of antibiotics which have to be used, like ceftazidime and cefepime are the only cephalosporins which act against Pseudomonas, not the other cephalosporins. So like that, few bacteria, they are inherently resistant to the antibiotic classes which cannot be used against them. Otherwise, the resistance mechanisms usually are mostly acquired mechanisms which are developed in the bacteria. So here, in which the naturally susceptible bacteria can develop resistance against certain antibiotics because of genetic codes they acquire from different strains of the bacteria. So what happens if they develop these antimicrobial resistance? So all of you know, it's a challenge now, global challenge it is called as, and because once these develop, the clinical implications, what has come into picture are also so many, like antimicrobial resistance hinders the effective treatment of even minor infections. And as resistance is there, prolonged treatment have to be given, and this naturally increases the cost, healthcare costs. And new emergence resistant mechanism within bacteria also threatens our ability to treat common diseases and the success of chemotherapy for cancer, organ transplantation. So where you require usually use of antibiotics either as prophylaxis, or could be because the infections in these people are more, could be for therapeutic purposes as well, or for treatment. So mechanism of antibiotic resistance is to inhibit the bacterial growth, antibiotics must cross the cell wall and may need to be activated. Yeah. So what happens is antibiotic resistance, as I told, happens at different levels. It could be at the cell wall level, or it could be at the bacteria gain certain mechanisms by which they do not concentrate the antibiotic inside the cell to the required amount. So this is called as target modification, which can be achieved by target mutation. As sir was telling, there are porine channels within the cell wall of the gram negative. So these help the antibiotics to enter into the cell. So they modify these targets and the porine channels are decreased. So the antibiotics do not enter inside, or target replacement happens, like penicillin binding proteins, what you see are the target of action of all the beta-lactam antibiotics. So MRSA is developed by modifying this penicillin binding protein so that your penicillins won't bind, doxycycline or penicillinase resistant penicillins do not bind to these sites and do not exert their effect. Or enzymatic modification can happen, that is they release certain enzymes which hydrolyze the antibiotics so that their action is inhibited. Okay, this is the same again by different mechanisms, as I told you. One is entry is inhibited. Other mechanism, what happens is efflux mechanism, that we call it as efflux mechanism, is the cells are able to, the bacteria is able to extrude the antibiotic from their cell. Okay, so this is the history of antibiotic discovery and concomitant development of antibiotic resistance. So we all know that before the discovery of penicillin, this was called as dark ages, and Semmelweis, who told that hand hygiene is one of the important strategy that you employ to inhibit the transmission of infection. He showed that puerperal sepsis could be inhibited by simple hand washing technique. And so that was the only thing that was followed previously. And after the discovery of the antibiotics, you see here, it's called as golden age in 1950s, where most of the antibiotics were discovered. After this came the lean years, that is from 60 onwards till 2000, where there was a decline in the development of antibiotics because so few guidelines came into picture, that is FDA office was opened, and after this thalidomide tragedy that happened, there were too many guidelines, strict guidelines that were introduced. So development of antibiotics really came down during these years. But another thing what was seen during these lean years was all this pharmacological, biochemical target actions and genomic sequencing of all these bacteria were done, and there were all the antibiotics which were discovered were thoroughly described. And then came again after 2000 the disenchantment that is happening now. Again, we are again stressing upon hand hygiene as the one of the important technique that you do to curb the spread of infection with multi-drug resistant organisms. So resistance does not happen only in the hospital environment, as was told by the previous speaker again. So all these different industries, like could be the poultry industry or other animal food industry and all this, or it could be even the fisheries. All these different industries also use antibiotics. So what is happening is, ultimately when these antibiotics are used, naturally there will be drug resistance that will be developing in the bacteria, and these bacteria, drug resistant bacteria, reach either your soil or water, which form your source of infection with these multi-drug resistant pathogens. And that is how they are all contributing to the development of multi-drug resistance. And that is why now it is stressed upon that all different guidelines are brought upon, so that use of antibiotics is checked in all these different industries. Okay, now so coming to the case studies, there are 4 cases that are mentioned here. So I'll be just giving you a highlight of what were the case history of these patients and how they were managed with different antibiotics. So the first case, which is published in Clinical Infectious Disease 2019 issue by Neerpaz R. So this was a study, this was a case report that came from Israel. So the title is Successful Treatment of Antibiotic Resistant Polymicrobial Bone Infection with Bacteriophages and Antibiotic Combination. So here this case highlights the use of bacteriophages as an alternative to the antibiotic therapy. So here is a case where a 42-year-old man came with road traffic accident and he had a bilateral fracture of both the lower extremities. One had left bicondylar tibial plateau fracture with compartment syndrome, and right tibial femoral fracture was seen in this man. So initially external fixation was done, and then later this fixation was converted to internal fixation and open reduction of fractures was done. And 9 days after his admission, an infection of tibia, proximal tibia was detected with, and multi-drug resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae was isolated from this site. And after 6 weeks of admission, an infection of his left tibia with extensively drug-resistant Acinetobacter baumannii was found. So during this long course of treatment, he went several irrigation and IND procedures along with the placement of cement spacers. So the patient was treated with prolonged course of antibiotics. That is, he was initially treated first for his Klebsiella pneumoniae with 6 weeks of piperacillin tazobactam, that is 4.5 gram TID was given for 6 weeks. And then this was followed by an 8-week course of meropenem. So 1 gram TID was given and a high dose colistin of 2 million units TID was administered to this patient for another 8 weeks when Acinetobacter baumannii along with persistent Klebsiella pneumoniae was seen in this patient. So afterwards, he had secondary bone grafting and fixation of the tibia along with the gastrocnemius flap to fill the soft tissue deficit. And despite all this management, IND procedures and such a long course of antibiotic treatment, it was seen that the wound started oozing again, and this multi-drug resistant Acinetobacter baumannii, which was previously sensitive to meropenem, had become resistant, also along with colistin resistance was seen. So although the infection could not be eradicated with antibiotics, and his inflammatory markers came down to normal though, but there was persistence of this Acinetobacter baumannii infection at the wound site. Because of highly resistant pathogens and failure of antibiotic and surgical treatment, so an above knee amputation was planned for this patient, but he refused to do so. So he was, so they registered him under this phage therapy, and what they did was they gave a phage therapy. So what do you mean by phage therapy? So these are bacteriophages. Phages are not, as the name suggests, phage means to eat. So these are viruses which are against the bacteria, or which survive in the bacteria, or they kill the bacteria. So these lytic phages are usually used for therapy. So here the patient received a combination of phages, that is Acinetobacter baumannii phage was used. Also Klebsiella pneumoniae phage also was used, targeting both Acinetobacter and Klebsiella pneumoniae strains. So along with this, though meropenem and colistin were resistant, they were still used, but you see that the dose was increased. Okay. So 1 ml each of this phage cocktail, what was prepared, was given IV TID over 35 minutes. And these were the concentration of the phage that was used. So this phage therapy was used or was given for 5 days. Since Acinetobacter was isolated from healing wound at the end of first treatment course, a second treatment course was given for additional 6 days, 1 week later. So after this therapy with phage twice, so then there was healing of this graft wound that was seen, and eventually it was free of any bacteria at the site of wound during an 8-month post-treatment follow-up period. No positive cultures were seen, and the patient wound had closed with no secretions. So these phage therapy, so here the paper stresses upon the alternative therapy for your multi-drug and extensively drug resistant or pan-drug resistant bacteria that are coming now. So you have another option of phages which may be made available, but as such bacteriophage therapy are still under trial process, and there are too many hindrances to the development of treatment with phages. But all these phage therapy are available in case there are any trials that are going on in your country. Anybody can register into and can avail this treatment with phage, and they are very specific therapy. So like how you do your sensitivity test, phage lysis is also seen with bacteria, and then a cocktail of phages is given which will be administered. So over a period, it was seen that this phage therapy, phages, those were used against these bacteria, had become resistant to the bacteria had become resistant to this phages in vitro, but not in vivo. So luckily, the patient could continue with this, and there was healing seen. So this paper tells you that phage therapy is an alternative therapy that is available. Now coming to another case. So here is a complicated recurrent UTI case in a 63-year-old female with Klebsiella pneumoniae, which is extensively drug resistant. So this was which was resistant to all antibiotics excepting for tigecycline and polymyxin B. So the patient was described with a long, she also had comorbid conditions like type 2 diabetes and hypertension. The initial occurrence of UTI had occurred in 2018. Later, she developed acute pyelonephritis and infectious shock. And after treatment, including tigecycline administration, the UTI was not cured and had become persistent. It was treated with antibiotics, the combination of antibiotics like tigecycline, levoflox, and sulfamethoxazole. And since the complications and the condition of the patient did not improve, they registered under phage therapy trial after the consent. So this strain, Klebsiella pneumoniae strain, which was isolated from the patient, and the sequence type 11 was identified. And for this, a cocktail of 5 phages, lytic phages was prepared. This was called as cocktail 1. A regimen was made of antibiotic withdrawal, and 5 days of phage therapy was given in this patient on daily basis by bladder irrigation method. And repeated re-emergence of phage resistance was seen in this patient. That is why there was no complete elimination of the bacteria from the bladder. So a new cocktail was prepared again. This had, this is called as cocktail 3 again, which had 6 lytic phages. And all of these were effective against the Klebsiella pneumoniae strain that was isolated from the patient. And along with this, they also treated the patient with cotramoxazole. So this cotramoxazole was found resistant by antibiotic testing method. Still, this was added because it was previously not added during the first course. So they added this so that both act synergistically to kill the bacteria. Because sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim combination, cotramoxazole, it is excreted in the urine. So they reach extensively high concentration in the urine than in the blood. So this was considered, and a higher dose was also given in this patient. And after the treatment with this new phage cocktail and cotramoxazole, the patient improved. No adverse event occurred during the whole period of phage therapy, and the patient was finally discharged at the end of the month. And there was no signs of recurrence and was observed for this patient under antibiotic free condition during the next 6 months follow-up. So here for treatment, a different strategy that was used, that is phage therapy with the local instillation was done, and we saw that over a period of time, this phages also, the bacteria will gain resistance to these phages as well. And usually during the phage treatment, it is always advisable to use it in combination with antibiotic so that they act synergistically. And this is another case. This is quite an old case reported in 2005. So here it stresses upon the antibiotic resistance in Aeromonas hydrophila and Vibrio alginolyticus. So both of these are water pathogens, water bacteria. So they can be pathogenic to humans if they are exposed to fresh water, or Vibrio alginolyticus is a halophilic. So mostly in seawater or salt water you find them. So here is a case, a 37-year-old man had fallen out twining his finger in the rope in the lake. So his left, second and third digits were amputated in 2001. The amputated digits were exposed to the lake for several minutes to an hour, and he was admitted to the hospital. So at admission, all his counts and the CRP levels were all normal. So a stumplasty was planned, and after 12 days of hospital stay, during this stumplasty, he was given cefazolin 2 gram administered. So this is basically against your coagulase negative staphylococci, which could be your skin flora as a prophylaxis. Then on day 12 of hospital stay, there was a necrosis of the wound, and the digits had to be removed. And from the discharge, your Aeromonas hydrophila and Vibrio alginolyticus were isolated. So then the antibiotic was changed to imipenem, 0.5 grams administered twice daily. So actually the recommended dose is not the same now, it is higher. And along with that, all inflammatory markers were increased. So MICs were done, then it was called as NCCLS, now it has become CLSI, and accordingly, they had chosen the antibiotics after the sensitivity report was obtained. So Aeromonas was resistant, had shown high MIC for ampicillin and cephaloridin. The MIC of carbapenems was between 1 and 4 for Aeromonas, whereas those of ceftazidime and aztreonam were less than 0.25. So they were all they showed sensitivity, and both isolates were susceptible to such antibiotics. So they were used for the treatment. So that is why imipenem was chosen for treatment. So the mechanism of resistance to these beta-lactams was sought after. So they saw that they had this beta-lactamase producing genes in them, and it had at least 3 types of beta-lactamase gene, including 2 types of class B beta-lactamase genes and class D beta-lactamase genes were seen. So along with that, for Vibrio alginolyticus, they saw that along with the resistance genes, it also produced a cytotoxin. So this cytotoxin was also evaluated. So combined effect of both the cytotoxin and drug resistance had led to the treatment failure, okay, with cefazolin with the treatment earlier. So that is why the treatment had to be shifted to this. So this paper okay, emphasizes on the different drug resistance mechanisms that are seen in the less commonly isolated organisms or water isolates, water organisms or water pathogens that can cause opportunistic infections in people, or accidental infections like Aeromonas and Vibrio alginolyticus also can harbor this different drug resistance in them. So this is another case which was published in 2011 in Journal of Infectious Disease, which is on Acinetobacter baumannii resistant to colistin alters its antibiotic resistance profile. So here is a case, a 39-year-old man who had previous surgical resection of craniopharyngioma with symptoms of acute hydrocephalus. So this man had come to the emergency after 20 years of his resection of craniopharyngioma to the OPD with symptoms of acute hydrocephalus. So he was treated with external ventricular CSF decompression was done in this patient. On 8th day following procedure, it was seen that he had acquired hospital-acquired infection. That is, a patient presented with CSF leak at the wound site, and on day 11, it was seen that the CSF had all acute infection signs, turbids, and with all increase in neutrophils and all other features of acute meningitis were seen. From the CSF culture, Acinetobacter baumannii was isolated, and this was susceptible to colistin, tigecycline, amikacin, gentamicin, and tobramycin, and it was resistant to all cephalosporins and BLBL inhibitor combination. Acinetobacter baumannii, on day 14, vancomycin and meropenem were so this patient was initially started when acute meningitis was seen. So what he was initially started on vancomycin and meropenem. So vancomycin was given in the dose of 500 mg intravenously for 6 hours, and meropenem was given in the dose of 1 gram IV quarterly were prescribed. So vancomycin could be that as an empiric therapy it was started because most of these CSF, most of these shunts are usually associated with your coagulase negative staphylococci. That could be the reason why this was started with. And once the susceptibility pattern was seen, it was seen that meropenem was resistant. So on day 14, vancomycin and meropenem were discontinued and colistin was started because it was resistant. And vancomycin is of no effect on your Acinetobacter. So on day 23, CSF characteristic still remained the same. There was no improvement, and Acinetobacter baumannii was again isolated with changes in its susceptibility pattern. That is, it had become susceptible to sulbactam, tigecycline, minocycline, amikacin, or other aminoglycosides, and it was resistant to colistin this time. So they started with intrathecal gentamicin to this patient. And on day 28, the patient condition still remained the same, And again, Acinetobacter baumannii was isolated, and this was susceptible to sulbactam and minocycline along with cefepime. So this cefepime, which was resistant previously, had become sensitive now, and other aminoglycosides were sensitive. On day 31, ventricular drainage was discontinued. But on day 28, after the intrathecal gentamicin, it was seen that his condition was improving with the cells coming down and the glucose level improving and all that. Along with that, they also saw the sensitivity had pattern had changed. The organism had become sensitive to sulbactam and cefepime. And on day 34, the treatment was modified again. Sulbactam was added along with cefepime, and they stopped gentamicin because this was given intrathecally. So they added sulbactam with cefepime, and higher doses were recommended here. And antimicrobial treatment was stopped, and the patient was discharged on day 66. So this case report confirms that colistin-resistant Acinetobacter strains may be selected in vivo. That is, once you start the treatment with colistin, and colistin is usually not recommended alone, it has to be given with a combination with other antibiotic. And once this once the bacteria is exposed, naturally selection pressure happens, and the Acinetobacter baumannii resistant to colistin developed. And following this, as colistin is a cell membrane acting agent, and it also disrupts the lipopolysaccharide or the cell wall of the Acinetobacter or the gram-negative bacteria along with lipidae. So this had resulted in susceptibility to the two agents, that is your sulbactam and cefepime, which were previously resistant. So this case highlights on that. Yeah, so these were the 4 cases which were put up here for presentation. So I'll end my talk here. Thank you all of you for patient hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Mamta, for the wonderful presentation, and in detail you have covered the cases discussion. So now can we take up some questions? I couldn't see any questions in the chat box. The participants can unmute themselves and they can ask any of the questions. The questions can be directed to Dr. B.R. Shivkumar and Dr. Mamta Kale.
The patient is improving irrespective of the sensitivity report. Though that medicine which was started earlier is shown as resistant in the report, can you continue it if the patient is improving?
There is something called as susceptibility dose dependent or intermediate sensitive that is being reported now according to the newer guidelines of CLSI that we follow. So this means that though the MIC or the zones of the bacteria is falling within the range of intermediate or susceptible dose dependent, or the breakpoint and the MIC are close by, we can still give, because that is dose dependent. As I told you, you can either increase the dose of the antibiotic, that is higher doses can be given, or you can reduce the frequency of the dose. So,
Sir, I would like to add one more point here. The clinical parameters when you initiated the drug, as you said, is being improving, should be monitored regular intervals. And it again depends upon the foci of infection, the anatomical lesion here. If it is an uncomplicated one, yes, well and good. If it is a complicated one, I think we cannot take chance and we have to go according to the cultural sensitivity reports. For example, you're dealing a very bad case of pneumonia with septicemic shock. And if the drugs, which is as per the cultural sensitivity reports, I think is wise to go. So it all again depends upon the patient's condition and in what condition we are using it. Dr. Mamta, would like to add anything on this?
Yes, sir. So MIC or the breakpoint what we get may still the patient may improve, as I was telling you, because clinical efficacy is also looked upon. So if he's improving, as I told, the dose can be adjusted or a combination therapy can be added, and thereby looking for clinical improvements. That is what is seen ultimately.
This amoxicillin with clavulanic, this clavulanic, does it really help in, how does it help in amoxicillin action?
Sir, it actually augments the efficacy, sir. That is the reason they have kept trade name also augmentin. It increases the efficacy of the drug. Otherwise, amoxicillin should be given either at an interval of 8 hours or sometimes even at 6 hours. This one reduces the dose interval, and also the same dose, whatever the dose is being given, like 500 mg, that can be continued. The clavulanic acid actually augments the dose, sir. So it is effective, sir.
No, it can prolong the duration. It can prolong the action of amoxicillin, but if it prolongs it, it will also decrease the quantity of the bioavailability of amoxicillin.
That's true. That's true. But per se, it is not going to alter the course of the thing. It's actually the amoxicillin which is going to alter that course.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions, sir? Further questions? And I didn't see any questions. Okay. Can we conclude? If there are no questions, I think we can conclude the
session. Sir, can you simplify this one for disinfection, this antibiotic? Can you just give a general guidance? For example, UTI, say fluoxetines, like that. General for pneumonia, this antibiotic for a general practitioner. Though I know it has to be decided on culture sensitivity, everything. But in periphery, for this infection, this antibiotic, like that.
Sir, actually, as per the pharmacology books and medicine books, what happens is we have the list of drugs. For example, you said rightfully quinolones. Earlier, ciprofloxacin was being used. Nowadays, we are not using. If at all you're seeing physicians are using ofloxacin, but the nephrologists are using levofloxacin. So this is the difference now. It has gone from ofloxacin to levofloxacin. If at all the patient is comfortable, I think you can go for either ofloxacin or levofloxacin for minimum duration of 5 days. Or else you can go for nitrofurantoin. But the side effects of the drug is to be explained, sir. These are the two best drugs which is regularly used in the OP practice.
I was talking
this is the usual drugs which are using. So we are not using any injectables at the OP practice, which is being really not advisable, sir, actually, because oral therapy in uncomplicated urinary tract infection is advisable with these two drugs.
Sir, actually, national policy or antibiotic policy is available from ICMR, sir. At the institute level or at the hospital level, they form their own antibiotic policy. But for general practice, this antibiotic policy given by ICMR holds good, sir. So they give you empiric therapy, what to be started on in different infections. And then once your culture sensitivity is available, you can go in for the particular antibiotic depending on the sensitivity of that, sir. So you can escalate or de-escalate once your culture report is available. But for community acquired pneumonia, as you were telling, sir, usually fluoroquinolones have to be avoided because now they are reserved for your TB.
Tuberculosis.
And amoxiclav is the drug that is there in the antibiotic policy for community acquired pneumonia, sir, for OPD cases, if you want to send the patient home.
No, it again depends upon the clinical conditions. So pneumonia is such a thing which cannot be taken risk of treating at outpatient basis.
Yeah, if you have,
and we have that scores, a CURB 65 score, and we have to employ the CURB 65 based on that, whether the patient is suitable for OP or non-OPD. And again, as the protocol mentions amoxicillin clavulanic acid, the outcome is to be seen within a span of 24 hours, not to wait for 48 hours. If the patient's pulse rate is going up, and even though it doesn't have fever, and the patient's pulse is very thready, hypotension, all these things to be monitored at least within a span of 24 hours. So
Yeah.
usually advisable for the pneumonia based on the X-ray consolidation. I think we can go if it is a very small consolidation with a low-grade fever, maintainable pulse rate, blood urea is being normal, respiratory rate is said to be normal. I think then we can go for amoxicillin clavulanic acid, or else you can add on even any other adjunctive. 2 antibiotics also could be considered, but safe is to use 1 till we get a proper investigation, sputum for culture and sensitivity.
Yes, sir. So injectables can be given in severe cases, like ceftriaxone is recommended according to the national antibiotic policy.
It is being recommended by national thing, but very badly abused by each and every nook and corner of the country.
Yes.
This is what is being, when we start using, this is what, but what is the major problem is, we do not have a proper scientific body for the outpatient people to document these cases and apprise the national agencies.
Yes, sir.
So this is where the majority chunk of the cases are going unnoticed. There are so many valuable advice which can be given by the family physicians and outpatient doctors, but we should have a proper scientific body to take up that, scrutinize, audit everything, and that will be a valuable asset for the future generation. Right, Prasad sir, any more questions?
I didn't see anything in the chat box. I think if
Right, sir.
already time is there, we took already 2 hours now. So it was a very nice discussion. I thank, first of all, our eminent speakers of this session on antibiotic resistance, combating the antibiotic resistance. Dr. B.R. Shivkumar, Professor of Medicine, and Dr. Mamta, Associate Professor of Microbiology, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Medical College, Bengaluru, for their wonderful session on these 2 topics, and also discussing so much about even about the cases, as well as the importance of choosing the antibiotic. So definitely overuse, underuse, misuse of antibiotics, definitely it will give a way to the antibiotic resistance. As well as the WHO, there was a theme about 5-6 years back that the fight against the drug or against the drug resistance by WHO, even in the protocol mentioned that whenever we use an antibiotic, whenever we choose an antibiotic with judicious use, it should be, then also when we prescribe in an OPD setup, it is better we should make a color code whenever we use the antibiotic. It may be in a different color, and make sure that there are criteria to start an antibiotic, and especially the bacterial infection. And it should be never abused like some cosmetics, or it should not be driven by the pharmaceutical industries. That one we should make sure that we should prevent and fight this antibiotic resistance. And also, if everyone look at the picture, what is going on about the antibiotic availability, these molecules, nowadays we are not coming out with many of the different antibiotic molecules. Suppose the resistance happens all over the world, then we will not be left with any of the newer antibiotics in the near future. So that is what we want to know about this. And this was a wonderful day, a wonderful session by our eminent speakers. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Shivkumar and Dr. Mamta for this session. And
Thank you,
first
sir.
of all, and also I thank our national president, Dr. Jayalal sir, for giving an opportunity to conduct this program in IMA Karnataka State Branch. And also I thank Dr. Jayesh Lele, our Honorary Secretary General, IMA Headquarters, for moderating, and also he has told us about to conduct in every state of India, so that this should be taken as a primary importance now on. And I thank our IMA KSP President, Dr. Katil Suresh Kudva, for giving our opening statements. And also I thank our President-elect, Dr. Shivkumar B. Lakol, who is there with us today, and he has given so many inputs for conducting this academic activity. And I thank all our senior members, like I can mention here Dr. N. Veeranna, then Dr. Vijay Kumar from KGF, and Dr. Sridevi, and Dr. Ajay Ghosh, and they're all the senior members who are there today, and many of our IMA members, as well as physicians, as well as microbiologists, they have joined our sessions today. And I thank IMA headquarters for giving this platform to express views and also discuss on the fight against antibiotic resistance. And I thank our Honorary Treasurer, Dr. Karunakar BP, who is with us today, and and all our office bearers who are there from IMA, KSP, as well as from IMA branches all over Karnataka, all the office bearers. So I thank everyone for this wonderful discussion. So we will take up the fight against antibiotic resistance from now on to prevent the future resistance which can happen. Thank you, one and all. Good night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Wonderful talk.
Have a good night, sir.
Eminent speakers from Sukumar sir and